up, guys? Victim Drop Spotlight. We're here with series creator and star of Stupid Cupid, Sarah Randall Hunt. How you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Enjoying the different background I have today.
Yeah.
How's your day?
Good. Just trucking along, and quarantining with my boyfriend and the show's director and co-writer, Yaroslav Altunin.
Woo-wee. I guess you guys are writing some more episodes coming up soon.
Well, we'll need to get to work on that, yes.
Ooh. So, Sarah, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you get into acting?
Yeah, so I'm originally from
Ooh.
Kansas City on the Kansas side, for those of you who know the difference. Um, and my grandma used to call me Sarah Bernhardt when I was a little girl, so I've always had a flair for the dramatic. And I came to acting through performing in musicals, and so I sing as well, and I grew up dancing and loving old movie musicals. And then I even studied music for a time and then eventually found my groove in theater and straight acting. I still sing a little bit for fun. But yeah, and I used to live in New York. I've performed on stages across the country. And my time in New York really helped I've always been a huge fan of film, but my entry into acting and performing was through the stage. And so as I was in New York, I was gaining more experience doing on-camera commercials and doing, films, and then I really became passionate and saw that as my way forward.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's a diverse background you're going through there.
Yeah, I've lived, I've traveled, I've done lots of things.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have to ask, how did the idea for Stupid Cupid come along?
Well, before I met the wonderful Yaroslav Altunin, I was single and dating in New York and LA. And I personally had some like absolutely ridiculously stupid things happen to me on dates. And it was stuff that I was the idiot. And then there were other times where the other person was the idiot. And I just think it's such an intersection of this is where everybody's at their most vulnerable. It's like a job interview, but then for like, you know, it's more intimate than that. So, and I mean, I have so many stories, but there's one that's actually folded into the show. That's, oh, well, actually I'll do one that's not in the show. Which was, I liked a guy and I was on my smartphone and I was showing a friend. I was like, we all do this, right? We like show people photos of the person we're going on,
Yeah.
to, right? And this was someone that I had met organically out in the world. It wasn't someone that I met on a dating app. I'm even getting embarrassed thinking about it right now, so I might blush. But so and this was back in, I forget what year it was, but Facebook, you couldn't delete a post from your actual phone. So a little background for you, if you
Ooh.
don't remember those times. And you can do the story in a second. So I'm there, I'm looking, and I went to search this person's name on Facebook, and I actually made his name my status update, which tags the person and lets them know. And then so I'm frantically trying to figure out like how I'm in Midtown Manhattan. I'm like, how do I, oh my God. And I'm panicking and I'm with my friend. And I'm like, how do I delete this? I can't do it on the phone. I got to find an internet cafe. We have to delete it. And he liked the post. He saw it. And then, wouldn't you know, actors and people in the entertainment industry in New York all spend a lot of time in Midtown Manhattan. There's a lot of auditioning studios and things that happen there. And so I was at 45th and Ninth, and I look up, and he was standing across the street and like waved to me.
Whoa.
So that was an incredibly embarrassing, stupid thing that I did. And then there's, so anyway, I digress, but there were so many of these stories that were my things that I'd pull out at cocktail parties for humor. And it would inevitably lead to people telling me their crazy dating stories. And I went, God, there's something here. Right. And I think the rules of dating have become, it's a totally different world. So we're in this, it's the Wild West and we're all trying to figure it out. And so my inspiration was these comic stories, but also then to kind of help myself and others like find out, like, let's talk about what's going on here and figure out together what are the rules, because nobody knows.
And that the makeup of it, that's pretty cool. Introducing a lot of the stories that happened to you and cast members, like just watching the episodes. I'm like, you
Yeah.
basically what you said, they have to diverge into the action to learn more about not only the app and the show, but the dating. It's
Yeah.
so different these days.
Yeah. Well, and each of the stories in the show are like each of the characters, it's very important to us as the writers to make sure, I mean, that the point of view of the people playing them is very clear and authentic to their experience. So there was definitely a lot of collaboration to make sure they felt it organically worked with their experience in life. But a lot of the dates, aside from that, are based on real people's experiences.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and some of them are even worse than the thing. But because of the format, we had to shorten it and get to the point of the date. So, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty unbelievable,
Yeah. Yep. Ah, so many stories.
Oh, yes. And while doing this series, I know we're having a pandemic right now. What kind of obstacles did you have to go through for getting the series out?
Yeah. So we were lucky to have finished a majority of our filming at the end of 2019. So we were actually in post-production when the pandemic hit in March, and we finished the show completely in May. So of May of 2020. And then we were like, well, what's happening? And I talked to a couple of people and who are content creators as well, filmmakers, and they were like, look, if you have something, sit on it for a minute. Things are crazy. I mean, I think there was so much uncertainty. People were very confused about what was happening, and everybody just we were all sheltering in place and not really sure what was going to happen next. So I think with regards to entertainment, people were accessing things, but they weren't really, they were rewatching things they'd already seen. They were comfort watching that, movie that they watched a bazillion times. So the timing, the advice that I received, and I think it was a good one, was just to pause on the release of the series. We did receive a grant from the NYFA, New York Foundation of the Arts, and MOM, which is the Mayor's Office of Production in New York. So when you see the Made in New York logo, that's MOM. A term of the grant was to make sure that we released it free to the public by March of 2021. So we knew we wanted to do it within the year, but we just kind of paused on it for a second. So that was our biggest thing, was just making sure that we were releasing it in the right time when people were ready for it. And Valentine's Day of 2021 felt like a good move. We did have a pickup scene. Yeah, we did have a pickup scene to do in LA. The core casts were all LA based, and then the supporting characters are all New York based. As a term of the grant, we had to film in New York, and it was such a pleasure to return there to film. So I digress. But we did have a scene to do, the conference scene in episode, I think it's 4 or 5. And so we each had to do it from our homes, rather than, that was a whole written scene where everybody was supposed to be in a park, doing yoga together. And so we had to pivot. And I think, sometimes it's really, restrictions actually are a fun experiment for increasing creativity, because you have these confines that you have to work in. So it was actually a lot of fun. It was kind of a technical nightmare for a second, but we figured it out. And all of our actors are so lovely and roll with the punches, and they did a great job.
Awesome. That's great to hear. The actors did a phenomenal job on the show. Like, they took their character and they became the character, and they added panache to it. Like, I was like so like into the
Or
show. Like, the episode was
panache, as Tyler Hollinger said at one point, who plays Lauren. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Oh, I love Lauren's character.
Right.
He'll be like 1 minute, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do that. And the next minute, like, oh, like he was so outrageous.
He's a hilarious comic actor.
And I know you had the grant through New York, but was there any locations that you guys discussed that felt like it was a big dating scene city?
Um, yeah, so locations came through my contacts in New York, and I think New York is such a gosh, there's so many wonderful places to go eat and hang out and be either outside or inside. So I thought it was a really great backdrop for the show.
Awesome. Yes, it's a very lovely city. I went there a couple of years ago and I was like,
Yeah,
wow. Like,
yeah, yeah. It's the greatest. It's
oh,
certainly an experience.
oh, yes, it is. So, what kind of things do you want fans to expect when they watch the web series?
I want them to have a good time. I hope they laugh. I hope they not cry necessarily, but feel things, feel some stirrings. I also think part of the creation of the show, you know, in my own pursuit of romance and happiness and all of that, I think part of my exploring of this topic in the show was me understanding more about the world and love in the modern era. And so I did a lot of research about what actually happens behind the scenes in dating apps and how they're actually created. And there's a lot of stuff that when you kind of peel back the curtain, there's a lot of bias that happens. And it's stuff that like we just do super we're just conditioned and we're not even thinking about it. And so part of our purpose in creating the show and making sure we had so many different viewpoints in it was that we kind of unpack these things that happen and kind of peel back the curtain and go, oh, well, why are Black women the least engaged people on dating apps? Why are Asian men considered not as attractive as their other male counterparts? It's not so unpacking those things in a way that's sort of like we're not going to hit you over the head with it, but we want to open up a conversation about dating and about how we make the decision process behind who we're attracted to.
Oh yes, that's fantastic, and you hit the nail on the coffin right there. Just
Mhm.
with the certain situations that went on throughout the show, I was like, and
Yeah.
it shines a light on it, because people have their own ideas on certain things, but when you actually sit down and let it happen, it's just totally opposite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's like hitting people in their most vulnerable, and I think we've all felt that, right? That blush that I had before was like, "Oh God, I made this stupid mistake," or whatever. It's just like it's also I want the show to be a catharsis for everybody to kind of go, "Oh, I'm not alone in that. I also felt like an idiot," or, or you know.
I was like,
So
where does the sign up sheet to put some stories in there?
yeah, we have a website, stupidcupid.us. Send me
Ooh,
an email.
oh, that'd be perfect right there.
Yeah.
Get that Jim Beam out again.
Yes.
And lastly, Sarah, where can our fans find the show on social media?
Yeah, there's so we're on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We haven't gotten into TikTok yet, but our handle on all of those is at Stupid Cupid US. Our website is stupidcupid.us. And we are now streaming on YouTube and on Done Vision, which is a Canadian distribution platform. And they have apps on Roku and it's free. And they've got a ton of other wonderful content. They're really wonderful partners for filmmakers and for indie filmmakers. So I highly recommend checking them out too.
Awesome. Great to hear. Guys and gals, go check out this show. It is hilarious. It is awesome. And you're going to remember some memories that you thought you had locked away millions of years ago, but they just come up. All right. Thank you so much for the interview today, Sarah. Have a
Thank you so
wonderful
much for having
day.
me.
Oh, no problem. Anytime. Anytime.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you at the cons.
Peace.